So, the other day, Jim Staley released his new documentary, December 25th on Trial. He tries to make the case that the Catholic Church adopted December 25th as the date of the Messiah's birth in their effort to take over an existing pagan holiday. The documentary is full of factual errors and misrepresentations. However, I want to focus on just one segment from the video because I think it demonstrates an important lesson for us. Before we proceed, just a quick disclaimer, my family does not celebrate Christmas. We have personally found the biblical holidays to be much more meaningful and, well, biblical. I am not saying that anyone should or should not celebrate Christmas, and I'm not even saying that there is no evidence that some Christmas customs may have come from paganism. My only objection is to the misrepresentation of sources, which is a huge problem if we claim to have a passion for truth and if we have positioned ourselves as teachers within the body of Messiah. So with that said, let's get started.
Now let's go over to a Greek philosopher, Plutarch, in 65 AD.
So the first problem here is that Plutarch was not writing in 65 AD, and in fact, Jim is going to quote from Plutarch's essay on Isis and Osiris, which was written very late in Plutarch's life. Scholars have dated it to the early 2nd century based on the fact that the work was dedicated to a woman who was the granddaughter of one of Plutarch's contemporaries. So where on earth is Jim getting this date of 65 AD? Well, I can't read Jim's mind, but 65 is the section number of the passage from Plutarch's essay. Presumably, Jim saw the number 65 next to the passage he is about to quote and seems to have just assumed it was the date of this text. Perhaps there is a different explanation. I would certainly love to know how he came up with this date, but that's not the only problem. Let's continue.
He details for us that the ancient stories and all the legends of the Greek gods and the goddesses of that time have to do with the winter solstice. He says, quote, "For this reason, it is said that the goddess Isis, when she was aware of her being pregnant, put on a protective amulet on the 6th day of Phaeophi, and on the winter solstice, she gave birth to Hippocrates." Now, Hippocrates was the child. It literally means the child Horus. Horus was the sun god of Egypt, and they're saying that she bore him on the winter solstice.
So, this translation is not entirely accurate. Every translation of this passage that I've been able to find says that Hippocrates was born about or around the time of the winter solstice, not precisely at or on the winter solstice. Here's the relevant passage in Greek. When peri is paired with an accusative in reference to time, it means about or near. So, the passage is literally saying that Isis gave birth to Hippocrates around the time of the turn of winter. So, contrary to Jim's claim, Hippocrates was not born on the winter solstice. That's a misrepresentation of what the passage is saying. Let's keep going.
So not only does Plutarch tell us that the sun god of Egypt was celebrated on the winter solstice.
Okay, so I'm going to play this again to make sure that everyone catches what he says here.
So not only does Plutarch tell us that the sun god of Egypt was celebrated on the winter solstice, but he does so only halfway through the 1st century. Long before a single Catholic writer ever decided to try to figure out the date of the birth of Christ.
So, Jim says that Plutarch, quote, tells us that the sun god of Egypt was celebrated on the winter solstice, end quote. He cites a passage about the birth of Hippocrates around the time of the winter solstice, and then leaps to the conclusion that he was celebrated at this time. Again, this is a complete misrepresentation of the source. Even if we accept the translation that Jim used, Plutarch says nothing about the sun god being celebrated on the winter solstice. All it says is that he was born at the winter solstice. But it gets worse. The very next sentence in this same passage from Plutarch, which Jim did not quote, says that the days of his birth were celebrated after the spring equinox. So, in this one example, we have 3 misrepresentations. Plutarch's essay was not written in 65 AD. According to the Greek, Plutarch does not say that Hippocrates was born on the winter solstice, and Plutarch says nothing about a celebration on the winter solstice. In fact, he goes on to say that the celebration occurred after the spring equinox. Now, when I brought this information to Jim, he dismissed it as a minor error and accused me of being nitpicky. I will let you guys decide whether or not this is a minor error and if I am indeed being nitpicky. But in my opinion, this is an issue worth addressing. We cannot be misrepresenting our sources. And if someone cannot be trusted to get the small things right, how can we trust them to be right about other things? In any case, the lesson that I want to bring out of this for us is that this kind of stuff happens all the time. Are you just blindly believing someone because they put out a professional-looking video, or are you actually checking their sources to make sure that they are telling you the truth? Now, not everyone is intentionally trying to mislead you, but the fact of the matter is that we cannot just trust everyone to be honest or to have done their due diligence. We have to be willing to study these things ourselves. I also want to say something to the teachers. If God has called you to be a teacher, you have an even greater responsibility to make sure that what you are teaching is accurate and that you are not leading people astray with sloppy research. You have to be willing to be humble and accept correction and even go back to correct errors that you have made. It is a matter of integrity and credibility. For the sake of the Messiah's reputation, for whom we are ambassadors, we have to do better, and we have to demand better from our teachers. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. If you did like it, consider giving it a thumbs up and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you want to see more content like this, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel. You can also hit that little bell so that you'll be notified when new videos like this are released. I'll see you next time. Blessings and shalom.